Good morning. So what have Republicans done throughout the history of the U.S.? What have the Democrats done? Let's look at the historical record. But don't accept these facts at face value. Test all news reports. Compare sources on the left with sources on the right. Only then can you speak accurately and intelligently on the issues. Don't simply parrot what others are saying. If you blindly accept what they say without conducting your own research, then don't talk to me until you have the facts. We know that events are often reported on out of context, yet appear to be trustworthy. Well, you can't believe everything you hear. Many of the facts presented here will be surprising to many because liberal and mainstream media refuse to cover the facts or acknowledge their validity. Instead, they provide misrepresentations, misleading commentary, and flat-out lies. That's right. Our most trusted resources can no longer be trusted wholeheartedly, whether liberal or conservative. And you know that's true. Since its founding in 1829, the Democratic Party has defended slavery, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, and promoted the terrorization, torture, and murder of almost 4 million slaves in the U.S., according to the 1860 census. The Democratic Party has fought against nearly every major civil rights initiative in American history. What? I don't believe that. Well, listen up. Democrats deliberately suppressed any social and educational opportunities African Americans might have had. It was a way to ensure that the black person was subjugated, demoralized, exploited, and remained below the social, economic, and educational standards that freemen enjoyed. It is widely reported by far-left Democrats, mainstream media, academia, the entertainment industry, the tech sector, big business, and even clergy, as well as radical woke activists, that the Republican Party is the party of racists. They are ignorant, out of touch, a danger to democracy, and opposed to constitutional and civil rights. Democrats maintain that the Republican Party is the party of hate, that Republicans don't care about minorities and the middle class. Many actually believe that. The Democratic Party likes to promote itself as the champion of civil rights, but quite the opposite is reflected in the historical record. Malcolm X, an influential civil rights leader during the 1960s, said, "The white liberal is the worst enemy to America and the worst enemy to the black man. The white liberals aren't white people who are for independence, who are moral and ethical in their thinking. They are just a faction of white people who are jockeying for power." He goes on, "The liberal elements of whites are those who have perfected the art of selling themselves to the Negro as a friend of the Negro, getting sympathy of the Negro, getting the allegiance of the Negro, and getting the mind of the Negro. Then the Negro sides with the white liberal, and the white liberals use the Negro against the white conservative, so that anything that the Negro does is never for his own good, never for his own advancement, never for his own progress. He's only a pawn in the hands of the white liberal. Our problems will never be solved by the white man. The only way that our problem will be solved is when the black man wakes up, stand on his feet, stop begging the white man, and take immediate steps to do for ourselves the things that we have been waiting on the white man to do for us." Democrats cajole blacks into an attitude of entitlement and have kept them enslaved by their false promises, especially during an election year. For Prager University, Dr. Carol Swain, a political scientist and author, stated, "Today's Democrats treat blacks and women as victims who aren't capable of succeeding on their own. Massive government welfare has decimated the black family. Opposition to school choice has kept them trapped in failing schools. Politically correct policing has left black neighborhoods defenseless against violent crime. Listen to the American political commentator Larry Elder. What Democrats do is tell black people racism, 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 and trot out David Duke or some other facsimile every 4 years to tell black people, vote for us because after all, we're the party of racial justice, social justice, and equity, and these dastardly people over there, these Republicans, are the party of Jim Crow and slavery, even though the Democratic Party is the party of Jim Crow and slavery. Booker T. Washington, the most influential spokesman for black Americans between 1895 and 1915, said, "There's a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. There's a certain class of race problem solvers who don't want the patient to get well." When asked how to get rid of racism, Morgan Freeman, the American actor, responded, "Stop talking about it. If you talk about it, it exists. But making it a bigger issue than it needs to be is a problem." One of the most heralded civil rights initiatives is the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Although President Lyndon Johnson, a Democrat, signed the act, he indicated why it was important to him. And I don't use the N-word, and never do, so let me replace that with the word Negroes, okay? But know that it's the N-word. He indicated why it was important to him. "I'll have them Negroes voting Democrat for 200 years. A staff member said that the reason he was pushing the bill was not because he wanted equality for everyone. It was strictly a political ploy for the Democratic Party. Johnson also installed the Supreme Court's first African-American justice, Thurgood Marshall. However, upon appointing Justice Marshall, Johnson said, 'Son, when I appoint a Negro to the court, I want everyone to know he's a Negro.'" The Republican Party was founded in 1854 primarily to oppose the spread of slavery into the Western territories. This led Democratic states to secede from the Union because they knew that emancipation of slaves would destroy their economy. Tragically, it brought on the American Civil War. So what have the Republicans done? Republicans ratified the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 19th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, all of which were instrumental in bringing about social equality to all Americans. Republicans were also responsible for passing the 1960 and 1964 Civil Rights Acts and most every other initiative that promoted civil rights for minorities and blacks throughout our nation's history. Dr. Swain continues, "The Republican Party was the first to install blacks at numerous important positions. The first black senator and black congressman, every black representative in the House until 1935, every black senator until 1979, the first female in Congress, and the first Hispanic and Asian senators. In 1872, Frederick Douglass, considered by many to be the father of the civil rights movement, became the first African American to receive a vote on the presidential ticket, nominated as vice president during roll call at the 1888 Republican National Convention on the Equal Rights Party ticket. In 1857 case, Dred Scott versus Sanford, the Democrat-led Supreme Court ruled that slaves aren't citizens, they're property. In 1863, Republican President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforward shall be free. In 1865, Republicans ratified the 13th Amendment, abolition of slavery. So while Democrats were establishing the Ku Klux Klan in 1866, Republicans were ratifying the 13th and 14th Civil Rights Amendments, granting citizenship to all people in the U.S., slave or otherwise, and providing equal protection under the law. Regarding the Klan, A Democrat historian, Eric Foner, noted, "In effect, the Klan was a military force serving the interests of the Democratic Party." According to Encyclopedia Britannica, during Reconstruction, Republicans attracted the most zealous anti-slavery advocates and were committed to the emancipation of slaves and to the equal treatment and inclusion of the freed African Americans. They seized control of Reconstruction from Democrat President Andrew Johnson and passed the Reconstruction Acts of 1867 and 68. Once Ulysses S. Grant was elected president, Republicans enacted a series of force acts, or enforcement acts, in 1870 and 71, designed to protect the constitutional rights guaranteed to blacks by the 14th and 15th Amendments. The Civil Rights Act of 1875, introduced by a Republican, guaranteed all citizens, regardless of color, access to public facilities and ensured the equality of all men before the law. However, an unsupportive Supreme Court declared the 1875 Act to be unconstitutional and, in 1883, consolidated 5 civil rights cases into a single ruling, which encouraged the practice of racial segregation through Jim Crow laws. In 1876, Democrats passed the Compromise of 1876, an informal agreement between Southern Democrats and allies of the Republican presidential candidate Rutherford B. Hayes to settle the result of the 1876 presidential election. The Democrats' stipulation of removal of the last federal troops from the South allowed Democrats to take control of every Southern legislature. In the 1896 Plessy v. Ferguson case, the Supreme Court upheld a Louisiana state law that allowed for separate but equal accommodations for the white and colored races. The 19th Amendment was ratified by Republicans in 1920, providing that the right of citizens to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the U.S. or by any state on account of sex, thus affirming women's suffrage. In 1954, segregation of public schools was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in the famous case Brown v. Board of Education, overruling the separate but equal principle set forth in Plessy v. Ferguson. However, Southern Democrat leaders vowed to fight it by using what they termed massive resistance to deliberately interject frivolous amendments. According to the House of Representatives Historical Highlights, the Democrat-led House Rules Committee introduced the Southern Manifesto of 1956, which marked Southern defiance against Brown v. Board. The committee became a graveyard for numerous civil rights initiatives in the 1950s, according to the Daily Signal. As the civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1950s and 60s, the South was a Democratic stronghold that consistently resisted the civil rights movement. Republican President Eisenhower proposed the Civil Rights Act of 1957, which was designed to provide federal protection for African American voting rights. Democrats opposed the bill. With the Civil Rights Act of 1960, Republicans outlawed poll taxes and other racist measures meant to keep blacks from voting. Democrats filibustered the measure for 5 days and used Southern hacking to hold up the bill during more than a year of hearings. According to the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, under this legislation, African Americans who were previously denied the opportunity to vote in their local jurisdictions were afforded the opportunity to apply to a federal court or voting referee for a right to vote. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, and established the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. However, Southern senators launched a filibuster and debate that lasted 60 working days. 60 days. As stated by the United States Senate, filibusters proved to be particularly useful to Southern Democrat senators who sought to block civil rights legislation, including anti-lynching bills. Also, the 24th Amendment of 1964 abolished and forbids the federal and state governments from imposing taxes on voters during federal elections. Because African Americans risked harassment, intimidation, economic reprisals, and physical violence when they tried to vote or registered to vote, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 declared that throughout the nation, no person shall be denied the right to vote on account of race or color. It outlawed the Southern requirement that voters take literacy tests to qualify for the right to vote. According to the National Archives, by the end of 1965, 250,000 new black voters had been registered. By the end of 1966, only 4 out of 13 southern states had fewer than 50% of African Americans registered to vote. The Civil Rights Act of 1968 was an expansion of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, making it a federal crime to injure, intimidate, or interfere with anyone based on their race or color, religion, sex, national origin, familial status, or disability. The act included Title VIII, the Fair Housing Act, which prohibited discrimination concerning the sale, rental, or house financing. Until the 1960s, Democrats were resolved to keep African Americans from voting. They made every effort to suppress them and to keep them under their control and out of mainstream, free America. It took the Reconstruction Acts of 1867 and 68, Enforcement Acts of 1870 and 71, the Civil Rights Acts of 1875, 1954, 1956, 1957, 1960, 1964, 1968, the Supreme Court case Brown v. Board of Education, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 19th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, and other initiatives and rulings to enjoin Democrats to abide by voting laws. My God, have they had their immoral, reprehensible, and inhumane way far too long. Since Democrats had finally lost the war against blacks and their civil rights, they used welfare programs, such as President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal, and the programs set out during the Kennedy-Johnson years, to coerce blacks to migrate to the Democratic Party. You know, the party of the people. Democrats set out to enlist as many African Americans to vote as possible, since now they would predominantly vote Democratic. Once again, Democrats have blacks right where they want them, under their thumb. So to put it succinctly, the Democratic Party has and does prosper on the votes of the very people it has oppressed throughout history. The black community is a strong, vibrant, and indispensable block of people, part of the very fabric of America. They cannot be exploited any longer. They have every right to vote on their own volition without undue outside influence. It is long overdue. Long overdue. Republicans understand this. Democrats do not. Republicans honor this. Democrats do not. It is time to break the pattern of abuse and misrepresentation. Thank God we are seeing that oppressive Democratic stronghold finally crumbling during, especially, this presidential election. It is long overdue. Pray for our country. This is Barry Skeens for the preservation of these United States.